Hey guys, today we're driving the 2023 911 Carrera T, the least expensive way to get into a manual transmission with the new 911. We have a 379 horsepower, 3-liter twin-turbo flat 6, a 7-speed manual transmission, about $118,000 starting price with destination. This has a few options. It's about $126,000 as tested. It's painted in beautiful Python green. It has the Carrera T interior package with leather stitching in slate gray. That's a $7,000 option. 4-way sport seats, power steering plus, and the 2021-inch Carrera S wheels in titanium gray. I've spent about a day in this car. We've got a beautiful morning out here in the canyons. Let's walk you around this real quick, and then we'll take it for a short drive. This 911T is all about delivering a more purist and focused driving experience while saving a little bit of weight. So there's no rear seats. We have lighter glass, some lighter materials. Most of the weight savings are just from the fact that this has a 7-speed manual as opposed to the PDK. Looks really good in this green. Plenty of room in the front to put bags. We spent some time in the GT3 a few months ago, so we'll make a few comparisons to that. Upon first impressions though, this kind of just feels like a GT3 Lite. The 7-speed manual is really notchy, really engaging and fun to drive. These door handles mount flush when the car's parked. They can get a little bit annoying to live with, just because they never quite come out when you want them to. No place to put the key in here, just a switch to turn over on the left, as is traditional with Porsches. Modern infotainment system, some pretty simple climate controls down here with switches, auto climate, heated seats, parking brake right here, this cup holder, which seems like it just kind of gets in the way, especially if you're going to want to shift gears. Nice little place to put your phone here in the center with a couple USB-C ports. Got our cup holder there for the passenger. Good sized glove box. It's pretty simple in here. It's pretty focused. Let's take this for a drive and see what it's like on the road. A couple different drive modes: individual, sport plus, normal, wet. We'll probably start off in sport mode and ramp things up from there. The power with these new twin turbo 3-liter flat 6s is really impressive. There is just torque everywhere in the rev range. This feels as fast as the GT3 did. Doesn't quite make the same sounds, but for only a 379 horsepower rating, this easily feels like something in the mid 400s. Very light clutch. Shifter is nice and notchy. Can feel a little bit plasticky sometimes, but I think it's still a really nice 7-speed manual. Got a 991 ahead of us. The trade-off with the .1 to the .2 once they went to the turbo motors is I think you sacrifice a little bit of sound and excitement for speed and power and torque. These new 911s are a lot of fun and they're incredibly capable, really fun to drive, but they don't quite have the emotion behind the driving experience the 991.1s did. Suspension is great in this Carrera T. Very comfortable. Stiffens up nicely when you want it to around corners, but the rest of the time, the ride quality is excellent. This does not have the rear steer. Steering is light. I just got out of a 997.1 GT3. There's so much more grip from the front end in this Carrera T. That said though, gosh, you just can't go wrong with the 911. On a road like this, on a day like today, this is really an amazing driving experience. Brakes are fantastic. A little bit more of a throaty, guttural sound to this flat 6. It retains some of that classic Porsche wail at the lower registers, lower revs, but everywhere else in the rev range it sounds a bit different. The response here is fantastic. Those turbos spool so fast. It really feels naturally aspirated. Love the steering wheel. Porsche just gets so much right. And the fact that you can still get it with a manual transmission, and it's a good manual to drive, is just so wonderful. Auto blip works great. This thing can really hustle. Quiets down quite a bit when you turn the sport exhaust mode off. There's a little bit less sound deadening in this Carrera T than you get with a normal Carrera. So you hear some more noises from the engine, the drivetrain, than you would otherwise, and adds a bit more dynamic enjoyment to the driving experience if you're into that sort of thing. All right, let's head down the hill. So that whole time we were in Sport Plus. Switch us into Sport mode. Dampers will turn to soft or normal. The advantage here compared to the GT3 is really accessible performance, power, a little bit more ride comfort. Pretty comfortable daily with this Carrera T. It eats up highway miles. Only complaint is this 7-speed manual transmission can be a little bit tricky to figure out gears at highway speed sometimes. When you shift into 7th, going down to 5th can be like you're really searching for the gates. I think with time you get used to it, but just spending a day behind the wheel, I'm still kind of acclimating to the 7-speed manual, and it feels like I'm Fast and Furious gear changes. They just keep going. There's more and more gates. They're endless. It's so nice to have 6 speeds in such close ratio, though. And I will say this 7th gear, or shifting into the 7th gear, is a big improvement over the 991s. It just feels a little bit more natural to go into that 7th gate. Slightly lighter controls here than the GT3. Not as much feedback. But still an excellent driving experience. I'm still a bit torn on whether I'd have a manual or a PDK 911. The PDK transmissions are so good, and they match the power levels of these cars so well, in that they just really put the power down beautifully. And when you're really hustling this car, this 7-speed can be a bit clunky sometimes, but there's absolutely no substitute if you want that manual driving experience. Like the resistance from this shifter. It takes some effort to kind of get into that cog. I think the real takeaway here is the accessibility of the performance from this car is just phenomenal. It's so easy to drive fast. And as a result, it is very, very satisfying. So what else? Easy to live with day to day. It would be nice to get a rear seat option. I think that is one of the advantages to having a little bit more practicality out of a 911. So I guess if you're willing to sacrifice that extra capability to haul some kids around, or that's pretty much it. You can't fit adults back there very easily. I'd be very curious to see what a Sharkworks exhaust or an aftermarket exhaust would do for the sound of this engine. I'm sure it would open it up quite a bit. The noise that this makes leaves me wanting for a bit more, but again, the power is just insane. Gearing feels just about perfect with this car, not too tall. I think we've said it. 911T, this is a great 911. It's just kind of that 85% of a GT3. It still gives you that thrill factor. It still gives you that engagement. The power feels very similar to GT3. Maybe it doesn't pull quite as hard up top. But down low, the torque feels very similar, and the responsiveness here is excellent. Cool. All right, guys. So just some thoughts here today in the canyons on this 911T. A lot of fun to take out here, and a pretty good car to live with all week. Stay tuned. We'll be posting some more videos on all the cars that we're driving here this week, but big thanks to Porsche for loaning us this one. It's been great to get behind the wheel of a 911 that isn't a turbo or a GT3, and I've got to say, this is still just a fantastic car. As one of the last options at this price point and in this category with a manual transmission, I think it really makes it a special vehicle, and you probably got to go with the manual just because it's still here. The PDK is amazing. I don't know why Porsche didn't offer a manual for the base Carrera, but the fact that you can get it in this is, I think, really makes the car worthwhile. As tested, this was a pretty cool spec, still keeping price down at a somewhat reasonable level. The only thing I'd probably want to swing for is the rear wheel steer. That really helps with handling, but as you saw in this video, still a very, very good experience without that rear axle steer. And if anything, maybe a little bit more predictable and raw and more visceral of an experience because you're not getting that kind of cheater angle from the rear axle when you're going around corners. But that said, it is a very nice option to have and live with. And I don't know, there are so many different ways to configure 911. I think everyone kind of has an idea of what their perfect spec looks like. This has been really fun to drive though, and hopefully it gave you guys an idea of what it's like behind the wheel this week. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.
I'm always shivering.